What's going on, guys? It's Fight Season MMA, and today I want to talk about the massive news that kind of broke last week and that I just haven't been able to get to. But guess what? Jiri Prochazka is back. Jamahal Hill is back. They've both hopefully signed a contract with one another, but both of them have kind of been hinting at fighting. And both of them have said that this is going to be the matchup that is going to occur at UFC 311 in Los Angeles, California. I'm assuming that this would be a co-main event bout between two former champions in the light heavyweight division. And this is a massive bout for both Jamahal Hill and Jiri Prochazka, being able to go fight in there. A fight that has been needed to be happened, considering that Jamahal Hill won the title at UFC 283 after Jiri Prochazka relinquished the title at UFC 282. But these two are hopefully going to go in there and fight at UFC 311 in Los Angeles, California. And this is going to be an incredible fight between these two individuals. In today's video, I just kind of want to break down this fight possibly occurring, who's going to possibly win, a very early prediction, and kind of talk about why this fight is such a special fight inside the UFC light heavyweight division. If you guys enjoy the daily UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That is the only and best way to help the channel grow. Obviously, while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications just so you guys are always notified about news and content that releases every single day, just like this. But without further ado, let's jump right into the video talking about Jamahal Hill, Jiri Prochazka fighting at UFC 311, a massive fight to be happening inside this UFC light heavyweight division. So coming up very recently, the co-main event, I'm assuming, and the main event is going to probably be headlined by Islam Makhachev and Arman Tsarukyan. That has not been made official yet, but is rumored to be headlining that card. But the co-main event that is reportedly signed is Jamahal Hill versus Jiri Prochazka in Los Angeles, California at UFC 311 in January. And this is an absolute massive fight, considering that both Jiri and Jamahal Hill's last fights were against the current champion Alex Pereira. Jamahal Hill versus Pereira was in April, on April 13th. And Jiri Prochazka was at the end of June, if I believe, June 29th, against Alex Poatan Pereira. Both of these guys got viciously KO'd. Jamahal Hill in the first round and Jiri Prochazka about 5 seconds into the second round. But ultimately, both of these fighters are looking to get themselves back into the championship conversation, considering that truly these guys are some of the best light heavyweights in the world. I know Alex Pereira is going on an absolute tear right now, but Jamahal Hill is a former world champion. No matter what you said prior to him tearing his Achilles and having all these other issues inside the organization, he was holding the belt and won it over Glover Teixeira at UFC 283. And just like Jamahal Hill, Jiri Prochazka won the belt over Glover Teixeira at UFC Singapore at UFC 275 in one of the best fights I have ever seen, and one of my favorite fights I've ever seen, beating Glover Teixeira there, I believe by rear naked choke in the 5th round, a fight that was very close going into that 5th round, but an incredible bout by these two individuals. And truly, I cannot wait to see this fight occur. These guys are some of the best light heavyweights to ever grace the planet inside the division. I understand that might be high praise for both of them, but Jamahal Hill, even though he is incredibly hated right now because of everything he said, his kind of delusional aspects after fighting Alex Pereira and saying that he would be able to beat Khalil Roundtree Jr. better than Alex Pereira did, that doesn't really matter. You still got to announce that Jamahal Hill is an incredible fighter inside this UFC light heavyweight division. Going on with Jiri Prochazka, he's such a fun fighter. If you looked at Alexander Rakic fight at UFC 300, that was an incredible fight to see Jiri Prochazka get that second round TKO after just walking through shots at UFC 300 to get the win over Rakic. And this fight between these two is a fight that I said is a very long time in the making, a fight that has been needing to happen inside that light heavyweight division, considering that Jamahal Hill was the champion, Jiri Prochazka was the champion. These two were supposed to come back and fight one another, possibly at UFC International Fight Week, where we're kind of waiting for Jiri Prochazka's shoulder to get better, but Jamahal Hill ended up tearing his Achilles, forfeiting the belt. Jiri and Alex fought for the title, and then Jamahal Hill got the shot on the way back. But these two are some incredible fighters. Kind of Jamahal Hill is a main striker kind of guy, but he has a great chin on him. Jamahal Hill is going to be able to go in there and throw some good shots. He's got incredible power. He's got incredible timing too, and I know that he was actually doing pretty good against Pereira prior to getting knocked out at UFC 300 in that main event. But also, Jiri Prochazka is kind of the same way. He's got great timing as well, but he's incredibly unorthodox, unlike Jamahal Hill. So Jiri Prochazka is going to go in there, be able to throw different shots, do different things, to ultimately hopefully confuse Jamahal Hill prior to getting in that octagon at UFC 311, hopefully, when this is taking place, because that's the date that I've heard. And I know this fight is signed. That's just the date I've heard be co-headliner. But who do I think would win this fight? I think that this is a very interesting fight between the number 1 and number 2 ranked UFC light heavyweights. Because considering that Jamahal Hill is one of the best fighters inside the organization, considering that he is just he's won the title. Even though he got KO'd in his last round, he's only lost 2 fights. One of those fights was an armbar to arm Paul Craig, which was an incredible person. Paul Craig has beat the likes of Magomed Ankalaev too, but also, and then losing to Alex Pereira is no blemish on his resume. And Jiri Prochazka's only 2 losses inside the UFC organization are to both Alex Pereira twice. So genuinely, both of these men have only lost to the greatest competition in the sport. And going up against one another, one of these fighters has to lose. And I think an early prediction, I think that Jiri Prochazka is going to be able to go in there and kind of piece up Jamahal Hill. But now this is not me diving into it. This is just me off the top of my brain, considering that I understand that Jamahal Hill is a very, very, very orthodox fighter. And I think that this fight is going to really rely on have both of these fighters lost their chin after getting KO'd so hard by Alex Pereira. Now, I think that this has to apply more to Jiri Prochazka, considering at the end of that first round, he was 100% finished against Pereira, but the clock ran out and he got hit again at the start of the second round after he genuinely wasn't recovered in one of the most brutal KOs of 2024. But also, Jamahal Hill got beat to death by Pereira in that main event of UFC 300. So I think that this battle, whoever's going to have a better chin is going to be able to go in there and kind of win this fight, I think, a little bit better. I do think that this fight is a very similar stylistic matchup. Both strikers, both kind of got some unorthodox things, but Jiri is just incredibly unorthodox with the way he holds his hands, the way he moves around the octagon, everything that he kind of does in there. And I think that's something that is going to really benefit him a little bit, unless if Jamahal Hill can kind of figure out that pattern and that rhythm. Because the biggest thing with unorthodox fighters, when you fight them the first time, it's incredibly hard to go up against them. But as you keep fighting and training with them more, it's going to be easier every single time you're doing that. But I do think that Jiri Prochazka is going to get the win. I do think it would be by KO. I don't see this fight going that long. If this would be a 5-round co-main event, I don't see this going the distance. If it was 3 rounds, I could possibly see it, but a 5-round co-main event, no way Jiri Prochazka versus Jamahal Hill goes all the 5 rounds, and I would ultimately probably take by Jiri Prochazka by 2nd or 3rd round KO. Ultimately, I do think that these 2 fighters have needed to fight for a very long time, and with kind of the title picture being Jiri Prochazka fighting Alex Pereira, then Jamahal Hill, and then Jiri Prochazka saving UFC 303 with Pereira in that fight. These guys have been kind of fighting all back to back to back, and considering that Jamahal Hill had an injury and that Jiri Prochazka wanted to take some time off, I think UFC 311 for both of these different individuals is a great time for a return, considering that Jamahal Hill's been dealing with knee issues. Jiri Prochazka probably had a concussion for the UFC 303 head kick. And I do think that this would be a very interesting, entertaining, and impactful fight inside this UFC light heavyweight division, and a fight that I cannot wait to see, considering that it's with 2 former champions, 2 of the most skilled light heavyweights in the world, and a very impactful fight for the future landscape of the UFC light heavyweight division. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please let me know what you think about this massive fight announcement of Jamahal Hill versus Jiri Prochazka, probably being the co-main event of UFC 311. I think that this bout is incredibly necessary, like I've said over and over again in this video. These 2 individuals just seem like they were meant to fight one another. They're kind of that level below Alex Pereira, in my opinion, even though Jiri Prochazka's got a great grappling game onto him too, and I think he could also use that to exploit Jamahal Hill. But these 2 fighters, incredibly good UFC light heavyweights, former champions, top of the food chain, in an absolute banger co-main event. We got 2 very heavy-handed strikers in Jamahal Hill and Jiri Prochazka getting some crazy knockouts over other individuals, going up against one another, in an absolutely incredible fight at the co-main event at UFC 311. I cannot wait to see this fight. A fight that just genuinely needs to happen and has so many huge title implications in the UFC light heavyweight division. Considering that the light heavyweight division is kind of one of the thinnest divisions right now, a very impactful win by either one of these guys could thrust them immediately back into the title picture, or even get them a title shot with a dominant enough performance in this co-main event. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you guys enjoy the UFC content. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications, just so you guys are always notified about future UFC content releasing every single day. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.